Thank you for joining us today in Jennifer Schaus and Associates complimentary webinar series. We're coming to you live from Washington, D.C. today. This year on Fridays, we're covering the procurement playbooks. We'll take a deep dive into doing business with the federal agencies and departments with our panelists. And then on Wednesdays at 12 p.m. Eastern, we cover the FAR supplements or procurement regulations for the agencies and departments. Fridays, we cover business development and marketing aspects of the same agency and departments. The full schedule, sign-up links, and recordings are on our website. As you can see here, we've covered several of the FAR supplements already, and we'll be winding down the series on August 24th with the Veterans Administration. And here's a look at our Friday schedule. As I said, we cover the same agency in the same week. The full schedule and past recordings are on our website. The recordings are also on our YouTube. Please note that our summer soiree for U.S. federal contractors has been moved from June 20th to Monday, July 18th. Again, the new date is Monday, July 18th. Anyone can register as an attendee. We also have corporate sponsorships available. We're expecting 100 to 200 federal contractors. The registration link is on our website under the Events tab, or you can find it in my auto signature when I send out the recording from today's webinar. Government agencies and sponsors will be announced as they confirm. We hope to see you on Monday, July 18th. We'd like to take a quick moment to thank our sponsors for the event on July 18th. C3 Integrated Solutions, a provider of Level 2 CMMC certification, Insperity, White Oak, Futren, and First National Bank. And from the government side, we have confirmed attendance from Health and Human Services and the Naval Air Systems Command. Please purchase your ticket on our website under the tab Events. And now we'd like to take a quick moment to thank our sponsors to make this webinar series possible. First, we'd like to thank the Virginia PTAC. Virginia PTAC is based out of GMU in Fairfax and offers free one-on-one counseling to firms in Virginia on federal, state, and local procurement topics. Online resources and group trainings are free with no restriction on business location. If you're interested in learning more, please use the links provided to explore what PTACs can offer. And a special thanks to the Federal Business Council. The FBC creates and manages virtual and in-person meetings and events to connect industry and government thought leaders, product providers, and solutions with government programs that use them. The FBC works with a variety of federal agencies to connect government and industry in the form of in-person and virtual conferences, training events, policy dialogue, and outreach. Over the last 40+ years, FBC has become a comprehensive resource for connecting industry and the federal government. Next, we'd like to thank Daston. Daston is an IT and cloud solutions provider working with corporations, the military, and government agencies to lower their costs, increase scalability, improve operational efficiency, and meet compliance regulations using targeted cloud-based solutions. Daston is a certified partner of Oracle NetSuite, a premier tier Google Cloud partner, and certified partner of Cisco, Virtue, AODocs, and Authenticate. For more information about Daston services or to schedule a complimentary consultation, please email Joe Alston or visit the Daston website. Next, we'd like to thank C3. C3 IT develops tailor-made technology solutions that increase efficiency, bolster productivity, and improve business processes. C3 is the leading provider of managed IT services as well as compliant cybersecurity solutions for federal contractors. C3 works with defense contractors to achieve and maintain CMMC 2.0, DFARS, and NIST 800-171. Contact C3 to learn more about the CMMC 2.0 Readiness Program. The contact information is on your screen. Next, we'd like to thank RLJ Financial. Founded in 2008, RLJ Financial Consultants is a customer-focused, quality-driven, minority and locally owned provider of commercial insurance brokerage services. Their services are designed to maximize your return on investment in managing the risk to your business. Call Roderick today at 202-832-1417 for a free consultation and insurance quote. And lastly, we'd like to thank the PubK Group. The PubK Group publishes news and insights for government contractors, agencies, and council. Every day, PubK delivers news on bid protests, contract disputes, new laws and regulations, cybersecurity requirements, False Claims Act activity, and developments in mergers and acquisitions in the GovCon community. In daily news briefs and in-depth conversations in podcasts and webinars, PubK leverages its deep bench of government contract experts to keep you up to date on fast-changing government rules and expectations. And every January, PubK presents its week-long annual review featuring more than 50 GovCon experts across a dozen panels recapping the year's top developments. Participation in CLEs are free to subscribers. Visit PubK online at www.pubkgroup.com. And today we will be covering doing business with the Department of Housing and Urban Development. So let's meet our panelists. First, giving us the data perspective, we'd like to thank our friends from FedMine. Ms. Archisha Meehan is with us. It's great to have you with us as always.
It's always good to be here. Thank you.
And next, from the Department of Housing and Urban Development, we have three panelists with us today, Ms. Jean-Lynn Powell, Ms. Doan Lee Nguyen, and Mr. Michael Allen. Thank you all for being here. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for the opportunity to be part of Procurement Playbook.
Yep, thank you very much.
All right, and with that, I'm going to hand it over to Archisa to get us started with looking at business opportunities and trends.
Thank you so much. So my name is Archisha Meehan, for those who don't know me, and I am the director at GovSpend for the federal go-to-market. Thank you, Jennifer, and for inviting us and including us in the Playbook series. And I'm super happy to be here for today's session on the Department of Housing and Urban Development. So a little bit about FedMine. What we really do is provide integrated data and information on the federal spending to help our clients get the information and data that they need, and it sort of allows them to get the reporting and analysis that was not previously possible. For those who do not know, we are now part of GovSpend, which is the largest provider of data and purchase orders on the state, local, and education market side. So the combination of both the companies now provide the best of the federal and state and local spend data to our clients. Next slide. What we really do is we integrate all the various data sets, and this is just a quick look at the type of data that we integrate into an easy to use platform. So I always like to show that. Next slide. And next slide. So whenever, if those who've heard me know, I feel it's important for us to understand the mission and the vision of an agency that we are looking at. We are at a step of looking at an agency after maybe possibly doing a quick overview of where are possible as a small business or business, where are our potential markets, and we are now looking at an agency. In this case, we are looking at the Department of, we're looking at HUD. So when you look at a mission of an agency, it tells us what that agency is going to do. And it is going to guide the way they procure, so it gets to be very important to look at the mission of an agency. HUD's mission is to create a strong, sustainable, inclusive communities and quality, affordable homes for all. If you look at their goals, I like to always look at an agency's goal, and this one is so, it is different, I think, and I know that the Small Business Office from HUD is going to talk more about it, so I'm not going to spend too much time talking about this, but the focus is on people, their experiences, and looking at the policy and programs that are anti-discriminatory, they're equity focused, and that everyone has access to an affordable and healthy place to live. I also like the fact that they're talking about increasing equity across all the HUD programs, as also improving the customer experience for those that are either seeking or receiving services from HUD. So this is just a quick look at what HUD does and their main goals. Let's go to the next slide and focus in on, what are the contracts that the agency is awarding and what are the trends overall within the agency, and then looking specifically at the small business trends. I do want to point out that these spend numbers are coming from FPDS, rather our interpretation of the FPDS data, and they are net. In the Department of Housing and Urban Development has had quite a few deobligations over the past 4 years, I want to say, and or maybe more, that are going back to acquisitions that were done way before. But the way the data behaves is it's the deobligations occurring, say, for example, in this year or the previous year. So these numbers are net of those obligations. And just to sort of confirm or let you know that in FY21, the deobligations were more than $700 million. So you could see that actual HUD spend is a lot more than the $683 million that you might see here. So let's go to the next slide. So in the last fiscal year, and I'm looking at all contracts, that have been awarded, we have 453 companies that actually won $683 million net in contracts. Your top companies are Carrington Mortgage Services, Celine Finance, Ernst & Young, Lido. So it's a nice mix of companies, as you can see. Let's go to the next slide. In terms of how the agency is procuring and looking at just the NAICS and the PSC codes, a lot of investment banking, credit intermediary, data processing, accounting services are what the agency has procured, and this ties in with what they do. But I always say that let's also look at the PSC codes, because they will give a lot more information than just looking at the broad NAICS code. So you will now see a mix of support and professional services and software and financial services. So it's a nice mix of services when you start looking at it from the PSC code perspective. While we are looking at overall spend, I always will encourage you as a federal contractor to put in your keywords and see how the agency then spends. Put in your keyword and see how the procurement is looking based on the NAICS codes and the PSC codes, so that you know the NAICS codes that you should be tracking based on the work that you do for that agency. Fine-tuning the results, filtering the results will change how, what we're looking at. But we want to always do that so that we are looking and are focused on what we do and how that agency procures the services that we do. So next slide. So when we look at the small business contracts that have been awarded, we have more than 301 companies that have won more than 418 that have won contracts, not including the obligations that are there for $418 million. So the numbers will now change because we've removed the obligations that went to small business. So next slide. And then now when we start looking at the NAICS codes and the PSC codes specifically for small businesses, they are different, as you can see. A lot of computer-related services, design services, architectural services, facility support services, accounting services, some insurance. So if I'm a small business looking to work with HUD, I would really be focused on looking at how is the agency procuring based on their NAICS codes. So this is just a quick look. Let's go to the next slide. when it's important to also look at how the contracts being awarded in terms of set aside, especially for small businesses. And in this case, we do see that the 8A sole source, the 8A program is definitely used here. As also, it's always great to see small business set asides that are done as women-owned small business set asides, or even Hub Zone and SDVOSB set aside. So it is a good mix, and it's always great to see more and more agencies actually doing women-owned small business set asides. So that's amazing. Thank you, Jean and team, for doing that for our small and women-owned businesses. Next slide. So the other thing that has affected the contract spend year over year across so many agencies, and some more than others, is when you start looking at the contracts that were awarded due to as part of the COVID National Interest Action Codes. And you could see that in FY20, we have a little more than $10 million that were awarded to 18 companies, and across NAICS codes that included computer-related services, as also CPA offices. 57% of these contracts were awarded as small businesses. When you look at the FY21 spend, it's a much smaller number at $1.5 million, which were awarded to 4 companies. And Ernst & Young actually had the largest contract for the CARES Act financial services, I believe, monitoring. So, just keep that in mind as you look at total numbers, what has been awarded under the COVID National Interest Action Code. So next slide. Again, for those who've heard me before will know that I'm always going to focus a little bit on categories. The categories are really based off GSA's category management, which is looking at all the hundreds of PSC codes that are out there. And I feel that this always gives us a much better look, or a quick look, at how an agency is procuring its services. And typically, we'll always see professional services and IT in the top 3 to 5 for an agency. So no surprises when we look at the numbers here. I would tell you that the numbers for small business look off just because of that deobligation that was done on a couple of slides before. But having said that, professional services definitely is the largest category, followed by IT and office management. So keep that in mind. And as you can see, overall, the agency is doing a great job of making sure that they are procuring the maximum amount of the services that they can from small businesses. So always look at how the contracts are being awarded on the category management side too. Next slide. Of course, if I talk about category management, I have to talk about GVACs, and understanding how an agency is procuring across all the various IDIQs and GVACs that are out there is, again, very important. I would tell you to use your keywords and down select, an agency that you're working with, and further fine tune the results and come out with a list of GVACs and IDIQs that an agency is using. Understand whether you are on that IDIQ or not. Understand if there's a way for you to tie up with the existing companies. Those are all strategies that you incorporate as you are either deepening your relationship within an agency or trying to enter a new one. A lot of times when I'm going to see 8A stars 2, I'm going to also start looking at the contracts that have been awarded under 8A stars 2, and possibly, and if you are on 8A stars 3, that's a good way for you to understand the opportunities that could possibly be coming up that you might want to focus on, work with the existing primes, work with the small business offices. Those are strategies that you want to build into your agency plan as you're looking at an agency. So next slide. So we've now understood how an agency is purchasing its goods and services or its solutions. We are understanding, we've done an analysis of, if you're a small business, how is the agency procuring the small business? What are the set asides that it's using? You want to make sure you're fine tuning based on keywords and getting a much better understanding and look and creating that agency plan. Make sure you understand how's the agency using the various GSA schedules that are out there, or as also the GVACs and IDIQs. Part of as you're creating your strategies, especially if you're new or if you are, maybe you want to work with one of the large companies that have won services, start looking at the subcontract awards that have been made, or start looking at the prime contracts that have a subcontract requirement and start creating relationships with those primes that actually have a subcontract clause in the contract itself. Create those relationships, to get a piece of the spend. But if I'm just looking at the subcontracts that have been reported within FSRS that then feeds the data into USA spending, in FY21 I have about 105 million that was reported as subcontract awards by 10 prime contractors, and it was awarded to about 64 subawardees, which is a nice amount. And again, you could see that the NAICS codes that really were being used to where the subcontracts were awarded were in the computer-related NAICS codes, the administrative management, facility support, and accounting and CPA firms offices. But let's go into the next slide and get a good look at who are your top 10 primes that are awarding the subcontracts. The majority of the subcontracts that were awarded were by Veritas Capital Fund Management, followed by Leidos and Perspecta. But you also then you can see who are the major sub-awardees, and you have companies such as Hewlett-Packard, Carasoft, Stampede Ventures, and other related companies. So it just gives you a good idea. You obviously want to get into the details and understand more of what are the sub-awardees doing. So next slide. Some agencies do work a lot with grants, and absolutely, given the mission and goals of HUD, they do work with grants. And this is just a quick look at the grants that have been awarded year over year. So I would definitely say that there is a major impact of COVID if I'm just looking at the jump from FY 2019 to FY 20 and 21. So keep that in mind. Again, have a look at the grants that are being awarded. Is there a way that you could work with the prime grantee, or are those grants that you want to keep your eyes open for the future? So do not, so keep in mind as you're creating your strategy and you're looking at the prime contracts and subcontract opportunities, also do pay attention to the grant opportunities that could possibly be there. So next slide. So that brings us to opportunities. Typically opportunities are always going to be contracts that the opportunities truly are dependent on what is it that the agency needs and the funding that is available. It could be based on new initiatives that are going to create new opportunities, and we are seeing that across all agencies based on the administration's priorities. So definitely keep that in the back of your mind. But also opportunities are possibly contracts that are expiring, especially in the services industry, that could be recompeted. So, and how do you find out what these opportunities are? How do you create your pipeline based on the opportunities that are out there? Obviously, the budget information that is released every year, and I know HUD's FY23 proposed budget is very much out there. Have a look at that. See the programs that they are talking about, that they're funding, what is the amount that's been funding. Use a research platform such as ours or any of the public data sets that are out there to understand who are the possible incumbents that might have that work or could be winning some of the new work. Look at the IT, if you are in the IT industry, pay attention to the Exhibit 53s and 300s, which have a lot of information, including what is the budgeted spend for a specific program. The Exhibit 300s give you a lot of information, including how that specific program is doing, how is it graded, who is the program manager. So there's a lot of key information that is available out there that you want to look at as you're looking at possible new opportunities. Pay attention to the budgeted dollars that are out there too, and make sure that you're going after possible opportunities or new opportunities that have actually got some funding. Look at the pre-solicitations and source of sort notices that are released in sam.gov. This is the agency's way of doing market research. I always encourage clients and small businesses to respond to them, to save searches just for pre-solicitations and source of sort notices. And even if you feel that you're not a good fit, but there is something that you could yet do respond to them. And then the other thing that I always encourage clients to do is to create your expiring contract searches based on the type of work you do. If you are a woman-owned business, maybe you might say, I want to look at contracts that are expiring that are small businesses. Or if you are a relatively new 8A, you want to look at contracts that are expiring where the 8A is expiring. If you are on a specific GSA schedule or IDIQ or GVAC, fine-tune your searches for contracts that are expiring on those vehicles. But I would encourage you to do that research, use that to possibly see what could be coming up in the next 12, 24 months, and start creating those relationships with our small business offices and existing primes, possibly existing subcontractors, to see how you could possibly win part of the new business that will be coming up. So let's look at some of the data that's out there. Next slide. This is a quick look at some of the Exhibit 53 information that's out there with the spend amounts, whether it's for IT security services or single family housing, or even just the data center. Hopefully the FY23 budget will be done soon and we'll be able to look at those numbers too. But this is just looking at FY22. Next slide looks at the Exhibit 300s, and we've linked the contracts and the existing Exhibit 53s to the Exhibit 300s. But again, this is going to give you a much better look at how's that program doing, who is the program manager, what is the funding, understanding the trends, all give you an idea of what you could possibly expect. So, getting the data, analyzing it, and creating that actionable intelligence for you is super helpful. So next slide. So let's look at some of the contracts that are expiring over the next 12 months. These are your top contracts that are expiring, that are with Carrington Mortgage, Saline Finance, AT&T, as also Perspecta. We're looking at a little more than $2 billion that are expiring. Of course, not all of that will be recompeted, but this is just to give you a quick look at what's out there. Next slide. In terms of further understanding these expiring contracts, have a look at the PSC codes and NAICS codes. And again, I would always tell you, fine-tune your search results with NAICS and PSCs and keywords, and fine-tune it to the minimum level or keep it as broad as you want. All helps you get a better understanding of what are the possible contracts and task orders you could possibly go after. So let's look at the next slide, where we're looking at the contracts that are expiring for small businesses, a little less than $370 million worth, with companies that are There include construction companies as also data and computer related services. So next slide. And then when we start looking at the NAICS codes that the small businesses have contracts expiring under, you do see residential property manager type of contracts that are expiring, facility support, as also a lot of computer related services that are expiring. Pay attention to the types of contracts that are set aside that could be possibly expiring. And if you are an 8A company, pay attention to the 8A sole sources that are expiring, especially if the company's 8A is expiring during that period or expiring pretty soon, because they might be a good company for you to talk to and create the relationships. So, pay attention to all of that. And then let's look at my next slide. So this is just a quick look that I did on all this week on all the open I did this on the 6th of, so 2 days ago. This is looking at all the open sources sought notices, all the open opportunities, that are out there for HUD. And you can see, it seems there might be a major IDIQ type of that's on special studies, reporting, and business services support that has been released and is due end of this month. And you could see they all look the same, but if you look at the solicitation number, they are all slightly different. So do keep your, if these are things that could be applicable for you, do pay attention to these, add them to your pipeline, track them. Agencies are always there to help us, especially our small business officers. So next slide. And I think that, okay. So have a look at the budget for the agency. I had a quick look at the budget for HUD, and these were just things that I found interesting, and I just wanted to do like top level items that sort of encourage you to possibly go in and look at the budget and see what is it that might work for you. But it was always nice to see the $1 odd billion that have been budgeted for climate resilience and energy efficiency improvements. You actually see that throughout so many organizations, so it's really nice to see that. We have about more than $2 billion in management and administration expenses, including critical staffing and IT to allow HUD to deliver on its mission, as also more than, I want to say, $36 billion for the housing choice voucher programs, as also other housing and housing services. So this is just a quick look of the type of programs that you will find in the budget, very detailed. So as you are looking and creating your agency plan, make sure you pay attention to the budget too. And and I think that is it for me. Correct me if I'm wrong, Madeline. My contact information is very much included, and feel free to reach out if you have any questions or and thank you, Madeline.
Hello, everyone. Sorry about that. I guess my mute button wasn't working. Thank you, Archiza, as always, for such a great presentation. Now we're going to be moving on to the perspective from the government. As always, here's just a few quick links for you. The link to the main agency website, the small business office, the acquisition forecast, and then the SBA scorecard, but I am going to hand it off to our team from HUD, and they will take you through their perspective. So off to you guys. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madeline, and thank you, Jennifer Schaus and Associates, for inviting the HUD OSW team to provide an overview of how to do business with the department. And Archiza, thank you very much for that very informative presentation. Next slide, please. So I'm Jean Lynn Powell. I'm the director for HUD's Office of Small and Disadvantaged Business Utilization. I'd like to introduce our staff. Mishoma Hayes and Derek Pruitt are a long-time small business utilization specialists in our office. Don Lee Nguyen just joined our office a few months ago. And we have Mike Allen, who is a President's Management Council Fellow. He's on rotation with our office. He's also a HUD employee in the Richmond office. And we also have a detailee, Ursula McLendon, and she's also with HUD from the Houston office. And this today you will be hearing from my co-presenters, Mike Allen and Don Lee Nguyen. Next slide, please. Okay, so you heard the mission of the department. So HUD's mission is to create strong, sustainable, inclusive communities and quality, affordable homes for all. And at its foundation of this mission is both equity and inclusion. Next slide, please. I wanted to just highlight in terms of the statutory compliance of the placement of the OSDW office within the organizational structure of the department overall. We are part of the executive offices of the Office of the Secretary, and this is really to elevate the small business programs at the department and ensure that our office has access to the most senior leaders of the department. And I report directly to the Deputy Secretary, and both the Secretary and Deputy Secretary have been strong proponents of small business utilization at the department. Next slide, please. Okay, I'll be turning over to Mike now to share information about how we are structured in the field. Mike?
Good afternoon. Again, my name is Mike Allen, and I permanently work with the Office of Community Planning and Development in Richmond. But as you can see with this graphic here, as you already know, HUD funding is deployed across the nation in all 50 states, as well as within each and every territory. To help implement the mission and actually administratively oversee the different programs that HUD deploys, the department is set up with a series of 10 regional offices and 54 field offices around the country. And a few of those regional offices also double as procurement centers, such as Atlanta, Philadelphia, as well as headquarters in DC. Next slide, please. Let's see. Yes, and this is just to kind of reiterate what I mentioned on the last, that the Office of the Chief Procurement Officer has authority and responsibility for our contracting activities. And again, just below here, you can see a few of the field contracting operations: Atlanta, Fort Worth, Denver, Chicago, and Philadelphia. Next slide. This slide here shows just the overall HUD budget for fiscal year 2022, just under $66 billion. And as Archiza mentioned earlier, the majority of the funding that HUD deploys goes into our programs. Direct contracting opportunities are just under $2 billion. So it is very, very important that you get in touch with your respective cities, towns, counties, as well as state governments to find out what opportunities you have coming down the pike. With those programs, many localities also have different contractor lists, so you can actually find out what solicitations they have. And what I'll also provide you so that you can take a look and see, first of all, what each and every grantee from HUD is planning to do with their funds, contact information, and to find out who the grantees actually are. You can find this information at hudexchange.info/grantees. And again, hudexchange.info/grantees. And here you can actually do a search for all of our grantees by program area, by state, by name, whether it's the Community Development Block Grant Program, the Home Investment Partnerships Program, as well as our Continuum of Care Homeless Assistance Grants. You can locate that information here, as well as contact information for the grantees that are responsible for those funds. And the next slide. All right, and I believe I'll turn this back over to the Director G. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Mike. So with regard to the HUD small business policy, as I mentioned before, we have a very strong commitment from our leaders at the department. The Secretary of HUD has issued an annual small business policy statement, which you can find on our website. Details the goals, small business goals for the department, as well as the roles and responsibilities of our offices, including the OSDBU, the Office of the Chief Procurement Officer, and our program offices. Now, with regard to the socioeconomic set-aside programs, there have parity, the Hub Zone, Service Disabled, Women-Owned, and the 8A small business programs. Now, I do want to make a note that there is heightened awareness and attention to the small disadvantaged business goal, which has been raised by the administration to 11% for fiscal year 2022, with the intention of increasing it to 15% by 2025. The next slide, please. Okay, so you may have heard a number of White House directives that have been issued that have amplified the importance of small business utilization in the federal marketplace. So the President's Management Agenda, Priority 3, Strategy 1, calls for and recognizes, the buying power of the federal government and its impact on the small business growth, and including those owners that are from underrepresented groups and communities. And so there are a series of acquisition reforms that actually help boost the participation of small business contracting. Next up is the Executive Order of 13985, advancing racial equity and support for underserved communities through the federal government. That called for all the departments to conduct an equity assessment, including an assessment of procurement equity. And we at the department assembled a cross-program team to identify the barriers that small businesses face in the federal marketplace and identified strategies in which to provide greater access. And then in December, OMB issued guidance M-22-03, Advancing Equity in Federal Procurement, which required the implementation of 5 management actions. And as I mentioned before, the small disadvantaged business goal has been raised from 5% to 11% this fiscal year, and the intent is to increase it to 15% by 2025. There have been several category management practices that have been realigned to boost small business contracting. There is a call to increase the new entrants and build the pipeline of the small business industrial base, as SBA has issued a report showing that in the last 10 years, there has been a significant erosion. There are 2 management internal actions that agencies took. One is to increase the accountability of the senior executive service members in each of the departments by including a small business contracting goal in their appraisals. And then finally, as I mentioned before, the confirmation by the OSDBUs that they indeed have access, direct access to the senior leadership of their departments. Next slide, please. Okay, so here's a summary graphic for OSDBU's responsibilities. As the OSDBU, we are responsible for ensuring that small businesses have, maximum practical opportunities to participate in HUD acquisitions. We do not have procurement authority, so we do not have the authority to award contracts. But we advocate, we educate, and we provide training. You may see a lot of our outreach events that we host every year. We also respond to inquiries from the small business community, but we also are responsible for a lot of compliance. So for example, the OSBU team, they're responsible for reviewing thousands of requisitions from our program offices, and they ensure that maximum consideration is given to small business inclusion. As I mentioned before, we coordinate, convene a number of vendor outreach events internally, as well as participate in these webinars like this one. We are responsible for issuing the forecast of contracting opportunities, and the team has been very diligent in updating the forecast on a monthly basis so that the business community has up-to-date information. Of course, the team reviews regulations and proposals that may impact the small business community. We establish policy and manage the small business programs at the department. And also we review subcontracting plans for maximum small business participation. Next slide, please. Okay, so I basically summarized our responsibilities, and I've mentioned all of these responsibilities in the previous slide. Okay, next please. All right, here I'm going to turn it over to Dawn so that you can hear more about what HUD buys.
Thank you, Jean. Hello, everyone. So you are probably interested in what HUD buys. We have 6 major categories that we do most of our buys in. The first, as you saw earlier through FedMind's presentation, is the Sector 52 NAICS code, which is investment banking and securities and dealings. Our second large category of buy is information technology, supplies and services, and our third top is Sector 53, which is housing related services around appraisals, inspection, property management, etc. And then we have some sprinkling around data analytics, general consulting services, and loan origination. Sorry about that. Next slide, please. This is just a graphic to show you our top 10 NAICS code for both large and small prime contractors. As mentioned, the 52 sector NAICS code here for investment bank codes here broken out. Next slide, please. Some of the frequently used schedules that we at HUD uses here, kind of repetitive to the slides previously by FedMind, but just a reiteration that it is important that if you have these schedules to be on the lookout for procurements that we may, solicitations we may issue out of these schedules. So we use the multiple award schedule from GSA. The special item numbers that we typically use are listed here. We also use OASIS and OASIS Small Business, as well as our government-wide acquisition contracts listed here, which is Alliant 2, STAR, 8A STAR 3, as well as NASA CWAP. Next, please. A part of the important aspects that we would like you to keep in mind is that our contract teams, procurement teams, are required to do market research whenever they are thinking about releasing a solicitation. Therefore, it is very important for you to keep an eye out for any of the requests for information or sources sought that we send out via sam.gov, because this will give HUD our program offices a better understanding of what small businesses are out there who can conduct the work that they're seeking. This allows a better opportunity for us to advocate for potentially converting a procurement to a small business set aside or more consideration towards a small business. So your responses to this is very critical. So please keep that bookmark it somewhere in sam.gov to look at the RFIs and sources thoughts that are being released. We also use GSA eLibrary as well as sam.gov and the Dynamic Small Business Database to do quick NAICS research. So if a program office has a specific NAICS code for the service they're seeking, they will do a quick search in these databases to see which small businesses list that particular NAICS code as their primary NAICS code in order to do some of the market research that they need to see what companies are available. We also have our HUD forecasts of contracting opportunities available. There are information I'll provide in the next few slides about this specific document, but it is very important for you to keep reviewing the document that we have on our website at www.hud.gov/small business in order to just better understand what HUD is looking for in that fiscal year and what they will potentially be releasing as solicitations. As well as subcontracting opportunities, it is really, we advise that you take a look at our prime contracts to see if there is any ability for you to subcontract through those prime contractors as well. Next slide. As mentioned, this is our forecast of contracting opportunities. This is a quick snapshot of the different columns of information that we have on the forecast. I'm going to go through column by column just to give you an idea of what the importance of it is and how you can utilize the information. So for plan number, this is important for you to note as if you are reaching out to OSTABU or to the point of contact listed, it is very helpful to provide this plan number so that we can look within our systems regarding the right contract or solicitation you're looking at. The requirement type, there will be two major types that will be listed here: recompete or new contract. New contracts are brand new. This is something that the program office is looking to issue just for this year, potentially, for base year plus options. Recompete, as it says here, is a follow-on or recompete to a current contract that has been awarded. This is important because you would want to look at who is the prime contractor of the current award through the Federal Procurement Database in order to just craft your proposal better, in a sense, to really hit the marks of what value add you provide as opposed to who the current contractor is. Or you may decide to partner with that current contractor to see if maybe you both can go in together to recompete for the next bid. The primary NAICS code, sorry, I skipped the next column, which is name and description. This is a very short description of what the program office is looking to do within the contract that they will be, the solicitation that they will be releasing, as well as it will provide the contract number of the current contract that's running. The next column is the primary NAICS code or a GSA schedule. This is important. As I said, we did our market research using this specific NAICS code. So this is something that you can do potentially a quick word search on our PDF copy or Excel file to find the NAICS code that pertains to your particular business. Type of competition, this will be where you will see our categories of how we plan to compete this work. It is either through a competitive 8A, a sole source 8A, total small business set aside, full and open, etc. And so this can give you a better idea of how competitive this opportunity will be. Full and open, if you're not aware, this is both large and small businesses that can apply for that particular service. So that could be a lot of competition. Whereas a competitive 8A, it will dwindle down the competition to only those who have an 8A certificate. So this is important for you to just note, because if you hold any special categories, that would be where you want to target your time. The total contract value just gives you an idea of the value that the program office is looking to issue that contract for. So if it's something way out of your ballpark to be able to accommodate because you're a new startup business, this will just give you that idea of what you can handle potentially. And then the point of contact here is very important. This is probably the second most important after the plan number, because this is the individuals that you will want to reach out to gain more information regarding that particular opportunity on the forecast. And so we in OSTBU highly recommend that you reach out to the point of contacts first. After, if you have failed attempts, 2 or 3 failed attempts, then you're welcome to reach out to the OSTBU office and we can see if we can gather more information regarding the opportunity. The solicitation release date and award date is a tentative dates that the program office is looking to release a solicitation and an award. This is, I would say, a movable target, as the program offices may not, they could issue it early or late from this solicitation date listed here, or award earlier or later based on this. But this is what they are projecting at the time that the forecast was being put together. The contract length is just gives you the idea of how long the period of performance for that particular opportunity will be. You can find all this information again on our website. It's the first document that's linked on our homepage. So the FY 2023 should be up hopefully shortly within the next month or so. So please keep checking back on our website for this forecast of opportunities. And we do update this throughout the year. So it is very advisable for you to check back quarterly, sometimes monthly, just to see if there's any updates to it. Next slide, please. What we ask for you to do when you're reaching out to HUD is just to do your homework, and that is to learn what HUD's mission and priorities are. Target down your program offices to see which one you really have the core capabilities to provide services for. So there are links here on this page to the different program offices for you to be able to read more about their mission, their program. Research our procurements. As I mentioned earlier when going through the forecast, it's very important for you to know if it's a recompete or a new contract, because that will give you an idea, the ability to go and research who's holding our current contract, what they're doing, what they're not doing, and be able to craft a proposal that will identify any of the gaps that are needed there. And also through our forecast, you can see what kind of services we're looking for. We highly suggest that you email us rather than giving us a code call. This is because OSTBU does not issue the specific solicitations. We do need to do some research on our side, as well as just gathering information that is relevant. So giving us that time to respond to your emails and your inquiries is helpful. And also in this remote world, it's just easier to get in contact with us via email. How you can help us is to get registered in SAM in the Small Business Dynamic Search. We, as I mentioned earlier, do market research using these 2 databases as our primary source. So having your information in the government databases will help us significantly to and you to get notice. So please register there if you have not. HUD contracts are governed through the FAR acquisition regulations, federal acquisition regulations, and our supplement, the HUD acquisition regulation. Therefore, if you are seeking a prime contract with HUD, it's very important for you to know these two regulation documents, as you will have to contractually abide by them in the future. Therefore, browsing this, you don't need to know it inside and out, but just understanding how it's laid out, what pertains to you when you're signing a contract with us. And learn our lingo. We have lots of acronyms being used at HUD, as well as every agency has their own unique acronyms they use. So highly suggest browsing through our acronyms list just so you can have a better idea around terminology as you get to speak to our program offices or ourselves more about opportunities. And then, as I mentioned earlier, OSTBU is here to help small businesses get into the door, but we are not the end user of your services. Therefore, we do suggest that you leave a lot of the very technical information to the program offices that we connect you to, but of course, give us your high-level capabilities so that we can be able to help navigate the waters around HUD. Next slide, please. Jean, I am going to pass this right back to Jean to cover our outreach and workshops throughout the year.
Thanks very much, Joan. So HUD OSTBU prides itself in convening annual vendor outreach events. And in December, we host an annual IT Industry Day. We have begun a new series focused on small disadvantaged businesses. And in March, we hosted a women-owned or annual women-owned small business outreach event. In May, we host a Hub Zone, a small business program. And coming up, July 13th, next week, we are hosting our 5th annual Service Disabled Veteran-Owned Small Business Outreach event with matchmaking. It is a virtual event. You do not have to be a SDVOSB in order to register. All businesses are welcome. And I encourage, for those that are interested to register, the link is on our website. And you can see it's hud.gov/small business. We are also hosting a number of what we called live chat with HUD's OSTBU. So we hosted previously a June 14th event focused on SDBs, preparing for a federal contract with access to capital. Our webinars are recorded, so you can find previous recordings at our outreach link. We have a webinar coming up on July 26th. This features our colleagues who run the Community Compass Technical Assistance Grants. And, you know, as part of our effort to help build the pipeline of small businesses, we encourage small businesses to take a look at this opportunity. Small businesses are eligible and they have successfully competed for these grants to provide technical assistance to our program partners. And this is one pathway in which to learn more about the department and will enhance the business's capabilities. Another convening that we have partnered with our field policy and management is doing outreach on the Section 3 program. And we have been invited to participate to share information of how to do business, you know, on the federal acquisition level. So basically the Section 3 program requires those entities that receive HUD funding to employ low-income residents as well as contract with businesses that are owned by low-income individuals. And while these contracting opportunities are, you know, at the local level, Again, this is a pathway, for small businesses to first, get contracting experience, the local, state level, and then when they are ready to explore federal contracting opportunities, we here in the OSDBU can share information with them on how to navigate HUD acquisition process. So with that, I think that concludes our presentation by the OSDBU team. You have our contact information, and I encourage those interested, to reach out to the OSDBU team. Let us, know any questions or how we can assist you. I do hope that you'll be able to participate in next week's SDVOSB virtual outreach, as well as the matchmaking component of the program. So with that, I will turn it back to Madeline.
Thank you so much to our panel, Ms. Archisa Meehan, and our representatives from HUD. We really appreciate your presentations, such great resources today. And thank you everyone who attended the presentation. The recording and slides will be available within the next 24 hours. And as Jean just said, all the contact information there is on your screen should you have any questions. And next week, we will be digging into the U.S. Agency for Global Media. The FAR supplement will be on Wednesday and the corresponding playbook on Friday. So be on the lookout for that. And lastly, don't forget to buy your tickets for our July 18th summer soiree at the Kennedy Center. We really hope to see you there. Thank you for attending the webinar and have a great rest of your day.